It's been a rough week, Monsignor.
Yes, it has been, Jen. It's been a very rough week as the fallout from the McCarrick situation and now the Pennsylvania grand jury report that was released on Monday has revealed the failure of our leadership to protect God's children and vulnerable adults. It has been a very painful week for our people and a painful week for priests and religious who strive to serve the people of God.
Yeah, having been through a parish scandal, I can tell you that the personal pain from having your trust abused and your children abused, that to build that trust back up is a very challenging effort. And when we were faced with it, although none of our children were actually, abused, there was a moral and ethical concern, but not an actual physical abuse case. It still rocked the parish. It was very, very painful. And what kept us focused and what kept us there was our understanding of what church should be, our desire to make it what it should be, and our commitment to one another and to the people of God who needed us more than ever, I think. We had a change in personnel, a couple changes of personnel in that period, and so they were really relying on, us to give them answers, honest, open answers, which made us and put us in the position to defend ourselves, which was very unfortunate because none of us knew anything about that situation. But also the need to really stick together and be there for one another is what kept us going, I think.
I think another important element is to be mindful that this does cause anger in people's hearts and minds and even spiritual lives. And I think we need to recognize that anger and bring it into our prayer. Don't push it aside. Don't. In fact, I would hope that our leaders will hear the angry responses of the people of God, so that they realize this is not a time to kind of hunker down and hope it'll pass. It's not going to pass. It needs to be dealt with. And we, as the people of God and the clergy, have been dealing with this and trying our best to protect the children in our care and the vulnerable adults that come to us. But when you find that in some dioceses they have not, or they continue to transfer predator priests, or even the past, leaving these files locked up and not having them examined, this undermines the work of the church. The church as the bride of Christ, as Holy Mother Church. All you keep hearing is to protect the dignity of the church. Well, remember, our church is the bride of Christ. She followed him up the Calvary. She watched him crucified, and she came forth from his tomb in his blood and water. She's been on the cross. She'll be on the cross again. Let us walk with Christ and the victims up Calvary so that they can have new life by being healed. Covering things up will not save the dignity of the church.
No, it ruins it. And in fact, one of the good things about this coming out, in my opinion, is that it gets it out in the open. We can actually see what's going on and deal with it. When the parish that I was working for had that issue, it changed my perspective on how to protect God's children. I felt safe. I felt comfortable before that. And I felt safe for my children before that. And that really changed it. I am very, very committed now to making sure that things are as they should be, so that no child, no vulnerable adult is put in a position where they can be harmed. So that I see as a blessing. The Holy Spirit is constantly working, constantly cleaning out, constantly bringing to light what needs to be brought to light so that we can deal with it. And this is an opportunity for our hierarchy to deal with it, not shove it back under the rug or, like you said, circle the wagons, protect the dignity. That's all.
Also, it's important to realize our prayers are for the victims, for their families and their communities, and also for the many good church men and women who are working along with their bishops to make sure this doesn't happen. Again, there's always the tendency to paint with broad strokes that what's happening in one diocese is happening in all the dioceses. It's important to realize that many good Catholic men and women are striving to correct the abuse, to prevent the abuse, and to correct the circumstances that have allowed it in the past.
And actually, one of the things I'm grateful for in this diocese is that we are instructed, if something were to go wrong, to call the civil authorities first, then contact the church. And that's really important. What, the people who are victims of this abuse tend to be the ones who are invested, faithful. They're there, they show up. That's how the people have access to them. And so they're the ones who would be more likely to try to protect the church and believe and trust that it's going to be handled if they do bring it to the church's...
the pastors.
Yeah, to the pastors. But that's not what we can do now. This comes down to every single one of us. Every one of us needs to be vigilant, looking out for stuff, noticing when something is going wrong or has a possibility of going wrong. And if we see something, we need to call the civil authorities first, call the church second, let them be aware so that, because there are good pastors, wonderful pastors that I've been privileged to work with who would take something like that seriously and make sure that it is dealt with. But it's up to each one of us to make sure that the proper authorities are informed as well.
That's about it.
We're both brokenhearted. This is a little hard to talk about.
Although we've done a lot of talking, it is very painful. And talking to other priests and other church ministers, our hearts are broken. Our hearts are broken for the victims. Our hearts are broken because of the broken promises that we were going to deal with this in 2002. And the frustration level among the people of God is very high.